The Girl in the Red Dress Who Knew Too Much. It begins on a humid June night in 1992 in the quiet river town of Davenport, Iowa, a small city where everyone knew each other's business, or thought they did. The streets downtown were nearly empty, except for the laughter spilling out of one dimly lit jazz bar called The Lantern. That was where she appeared. Witnesses remember her vividly, because how could they not? A striking woman in her mid-20s, tall, raven-haired, wearing a bold crimson dress that seemed wildly out of place in a town where most preferred muted tones and practical clothes. People at the bar would later recall how every head turned when she walked in. She was magnetic, the kind of person you couldn't ignore even if you tried. Her name was Angela Logan. Angela wasn't from Davenport. She'd grown up 2 hours away in Cedar Rapids, but in recent months she'd started showing up in town more frequently. Always at the Lantern, always dressed to be noticed. At first glance, Angela looked like she belonged to another world, sophisticated, sharp, and alluring. But behind the charm, she carried a different reputation. Whispers of debts, boyfriends with criminal records, and a tendency to know too much about other people's private affairs. And it wasn't just gossip. Angela had a habit of asking questions, the kind of questions that made people nervous. That night, June 18th, she was seen sitting across from a man named David Harper. David was 34, a local insurance broker, married, 2 kids, clean reputation, the kind of man people said you could trust to babysit your dog. But here he was, leaning across a bar table, speaking with Angela in hushed tones. Witnesses disagreed on what their body language meant. Some thought it looked romantic, others said it looked tense, like she was cornering him. What we know for certain is this. Angela ordered 1 glass of wine. She never finished it, and by 11:15 that night she was gone. 3 days later, her body was discovered along the banks of the Mississippi River, still in that red dress, still holding secrets no one could yet explain. The police were faced with a mystery that gripped the entire community. What did Angela know? And who silenced her for it? End of Section 1. Cliffhanger. What did Angela uncover that made her a target? Section 2. Crime and Investigation. Angela's body was found by fishermen early on June 21st, snagged against a driftwood in a shallow bend of the Mississippi. The coroner ruled cause of death as blunt force trauma to the back of the skull, not drowning. She had been killed before entering the water. Her purse was missing, but strangely, her earrings and bracelet, items of obvious value, were still on her. Robbery was quickly ruled out. The investigation immediately circled back to David Harper, the man last seen with her. He insisted their meeting had been innocent. He admitted Angela had been blackmailing him. Not over money, but information. Angela, it turned out, had stumbled onto something she shouldn't have: falsified insurance claims. Phone records confirmed she'd called Harper several times in the weeks leading up to her death. Investigators later recovered fragments of notes from Angela's apartment, scribbled with dates, policy numbers, and names. It appeared she was piecing together a fraud scheme worth tens of thousands of dollars. Harper denied everything. He claimed Angela was fabricating a story to extort him. But one detail complicated his denial: CCTV footage. A grainy camera from a gas station a half-mile from the Lantern showed Harper's sedan at 11:27 p.m., just 12 minutes after Angela was last seen, and in the passenger seat, a woman in red. Harper admitted giving her a ride but insisted he dropped her safely at her apartment building downtown. The problem: Angela's neighbors never saw her return, and there was no camera showing her entering. Then came a chilling piece of evidence: a map. Detectives found a folded county map in Harper's desk drawer, with a red line traced in pen running from the Lantern, past Angela's supposed apartment stop and out toward the river road where her body would later be found. Harper explained it away as an old fishing route, but prosecutors would argue otherwise. Still, the case wasn't airtight. Several bar patrons swore Angela had been approached by a second man that night, someone no one could positively identify. Witnesses disagreed on his description. Some said tall, some said short, some swore he was wearing a hat. Could Angela have left with Harper only to meet someone else later? Or were witnesses misremembering under the haze of alcohol and music? And then came the strangest contradiction of all. Lab tests on Angela's fingernails revealed DNA. It wasn't Harper's. Section 3. Resolution and Aftermath. The DNA under Angela's nails belonged to Michael Ruiz, a 29-year-old bartender who worked part-time at the Lantern. He had a minor criminal record, a bar fight, a disorderly conduct charge. Nothing violent enough to suggest murder. Ruiz at first denied even speaking with Angela that night. But, confronted with the DNA evidence, he changed his story. He admitted Angela had confronted him after her meeting with Harper. She accused him of supplying falsified bar receipts to Harper's insurance ring. Ruiz claimed she became aggressive, clawed at him, but he swore he never hurt her. Prosecutors now had two suspects: Harper, with a motive and a map, and Ruiz, with physical evidence tying him to Angela's final moments. The trial that followed in 1994 was one of the most watched in Iowa history. The courtroom was packed daily, local news outlets ran hour-long specials, and the phrase, "the girl in the red dress," became a grim shorthand across town. The prosecution argued that Harper orchestrated Angela's murder, using Ruiz as muscle or scapegoat. The defense painted Angela as a manipulator, a black widow, who dug too deep into men's lives and provoked danger. In the end, the jury found Ruiz guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 35 years. Harper, despite the map, walked free for lack of conclusive evidence. But the story didn't end there. Years later, during an appeal in 2001, Ruiz's lawyers pushed for retesting of evidence with improved DNA methods. The results stunned everyone. Partial DNA from a third, unidentified male had been on Angela's dress all along. To this day, no one knows who that third profile belonged to. Ruiz remains in prison, maintaining his innocence. Harper left Iowa shortly after the trial, never publicly speaking of Angela again. Angela's family still marks her death every June with a candlelight vigil by the river, insisting the full truth has yet to surface. And so the question lingers: was Angela silenced because she stumbled into one man's insurance fraud, or because she pulled a thread that unraveled something much larger? In the end, Angela Logan's story reminds us of an unsettling truth. Sometimes the justice system can close a case without ever fully answering the question of why.